Hello friends, thanks for stopping by to visit. It's been a while since I put together a little video. I was trying to do one every month, but we're already in March and that's not working out very well. As it turned out, I had a very busy February, so I have an excuse. I thought I might stop in and chat a little bit about what I've been up to, what's been keeping me so busy, and I thought I might also, because that's not super interesting if you don't care about what I do, I thought I might also share some things I've acquired recently, whether a purchase or something that someone has gifted me. That's always interesting to look at. So I'm going to talk about some stuff and share some things. The first thing that was keeping me busy in February was I had become inspired by my friend Katie over at the Weird Words and Effigies blog to blog every day for the month of February. And I actually did do that. It proved to me that I could be writing so much more than I actually am, and that I shouldn't sit on ideas. Oftentimes I'll take a mental note of something and make a draft, and 5 years later I've got 200 drafts of things that have never been written. So when I have an idea, I should act on it, and I've got more time than I think to be writing. So I'm probably not going to be writing 28 or 29 or 30 days straight again anytime soon, but I'll definitely be writing more frequently. So thanks, Katie, for the inspiration, and I will link to Katie's blog below. It is a treasure trove of beautiful, weird, dark inspiration, and I think many of you would probably enjoy it. The second thing that, while it didn't so much keep me busy because it was only 1 hour out of one weekend, the thought of it was busily building dread in my mind, which is I was a guest on someone's podcast. And that was a thing I swore I would never do. Not because I have a problem with podcasts. I actually have a few that I really like listening to. But I was worried that I would get on someone's show when they'd ask me questions and I'd freeze and just be paralyzed, and I'd embarrass them and I'd embarrass me. And I'm just not a great conversationalist. I'm really shy. But someone reached out to me a few months ago, and I must have been feeling particularly adventurous that day because I said yes. And so last month I was a guest on the Red Transmissions. That is a podcast hosted by Elizabeth Torres, who also is the owner of the Red Door Gallery in Copenhagen. She's an artist, a writer, a musician, a fascinating person in her own right. And on her show, she talks with the interesting people in her network about all sorts of the weird projects and creations that they are part of. And I was honored to have been a part of that as well. So I will link in the description box below to the podcast. It came out last month. I will admit I haven't listened to it all the way yet because I just can't bear the thought of listening to myself. But if you listen to it, let us know what you think. The third thing that sort of kept me busy, well, it didn't keep me all that busy, but it was pretty cool. A couple months ago, back in 2020, I had submitted a poem to LunaLuna Magazine, which is a big deal. I have never submitted anything anywhere. The only places where I have been published are places that invited me to write something first. I'm not one to put myself out there for rejection. I can't handle it. I'm fragile. So I have never submitted anything anywhere, like I said, without someone asking me for something first. So I did submit a poem, and it was published on their website last month, which was pretty exciting. So I will link to that below if you're interested in poetry. I know, sadly, not a lot of people are. It's just not their thing, which is fine. But if you do care, I hope you'll give it a peek, and I hope that I will be brave enough to submit a few more things, in the future. We'll see. The fourth and, not final thing. The fourth thing is I did something I swore to the heavens I would never ever do, much like a podcast, but you see how often I eat my words. So I made a TikTok account, and there's a reason for this. When I initially saw people posting their TikToks, I hated them so much. It's either this cringy lip syncing nonsense and pranks, which I hate pranks so much. They are mean and bad and you shouldn't do them. And I just read a Vice article about this that made several good points, and I'm going to link to that below and I hope you'll read it. But basically the gist of it is people are out there just living their lives the best they can, and then these shitty assholes play some sort of stupid prank on them, and it's awful and I hate it. And there's a lot of that on TikTok is my point. So I stayed off of TikTok for a long time, but then it occurred to me, much like my YouTube channel, that if there's something I want to see on these platforms, maybe I have to be the one to create it. So that is what I did. And so I now have a TikTok account where every day I post a perfume review. The series is called Midnight Stinks. If you're interested, I hope you'll take a peek. I have a feeling if you're watching my channel, you are probably interested in perfumes and fragrance. And my goal or my challenge for myself is to revisit and review every scent in my collection, which, as some of you may know, is not tiny. So that's quite a goal for myself, but I'm having a lot of fun with it so far. So no, I don't hate TikTok anymore. And once again, I did something that I said I'd never do. So you just obviously can't listen to anything I say. The final thing, and it's an ongoing thing, and I can't share too much about it now, and I hate to be cryptic because, well, I hate it when people do that to me, but I am working on a new project, a new book project, and hopefully it will see the light of day perhaps in 2022. It is another art book, and that's all I can say. I don't think it's really secret. I don't know, honestly, what your publishers want you to say about things, but I'm just not comfortable talking about these things until there's a lot of work already put into it and it's too late to turn back. So, you know, if it all goes to hell, so what? You know, it's happening anyway. So I feel not comfortable saying anything until that point, although I obviously am saying a little something now for people who are interested and are keeping, you know, an eye on what I'm up to, which sounds really creepy, but I think you know what I mean. So that is what has kept me busy all last month. That and other little goals I make for myself. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I just won't do anything at all unless I set up some goals and challenges for myself. This perfume thing on TikTok is one of those things. Another thing I'm doing is I have this cookbook. It's a 12 months of Monastery soups. It is a great cookbook. I was turned on to it by Pam Grossman from the Witch Wave podcast and the author of Waking the Witch. So Pam tweeted about this cookbook last year or the year before, and I was instantly intrigued. So I picked it up for myself, and what I'm trying to do is make one of those soups every month. And so far they are all phenomenal soups, but if you pick up that book, you can skip the orzo and P1 because that was a weird combination of flavors and textures and just no. And then another thing I'm doing is I am making a cake every month. And that's not even because I like cake. I don't have a sweet tooth, but I like to take photos of cakes. That is the whole reason I started my blog like 10 or 12 years ago, is because I wanted to share really nice photos of food like I had seen in my grandma's Betty Crocker cookbooks when I was like 4 years old. So that's been a driving motivation my whole life, and that's culminated in my 12-month cake program that I've set up for myself. So yeah, busy with silly little things. So that's what I have been up to. And like I said, I'll link to all of those things I mentioned down in the description box. But now I will do some show and tell. This is a doll, much like a doll that sat on my chest of drawers when I was a little girl. I was obsessed with her. And my sisters each had one. And we were chatting the other night, my sisters and I, and someone said, hey, do you remember these dolls? And this led us into this rabbit hole of trying to figure out what they look like and do they have names? Where do they come from? We eventually, as siblings sometimes do, siblings or close friends or people you're really close with, you sort of hit upon the same answers to these puzzling things all at the same time. So we all hit upon the fact that these are Bradley dolls, which I think were created in Korea or Japan in like the 1950s and 60s and 70s, and some of them have sort of freakishly large eyes and lots of makeup and strange, noodly, posable, nightmarish hands, which this lady here does not have those, and she's sort of less exaggerated features, I guess you could say. At any rate, this is not the one that I grew up with. She was blonde and she had a blue lace dress, but I like her even better. So now she sits on my shelf in my office and watches me work in a really creepy and judgmental way. Along those same lines, sort of, maybe, not really, is something I would have screamed and hid from as a child. Is this statue I had seen posted on the Christie's site. I think that's like I'm not sure what it is. I think they auction off super expensive things to people with stupid amounts of money. But I had seen a life-size statue of this gal here, and I'm not sure exactly what she is. Some sort of demoness of night and dreams, and I'm not really sure. I have got her on my jewelry stand because her hands are just perfect for, you know, hanging necklaces from. I'm not sure how she'd feel about that, if she's insulted or excited, you can't tell. But she now holds a special place in my treasure collection of jewels and baubles. I picked up this book that I'm not really sure how I heard about this, but if you're familiar with Daphne du Maurier, she wrote, of course, Rebecca and The Birds and My Cousin Rachel and Jamaica Inn and a bunch of stuff you've probably read if you're into sort of like old-timey gothic stories. Anyway, this is supposed to be a pretty thrilling read, I guess. I don't know much about the woman, but I love her writing so much, it just makes sense for me to find out a little bit more about her. So I'm super excited to dig into this, but of course I'm still reading from that stack of books I shared, 2 months ago. So, and I've still got books, a stack of books from 2 months, 12 months, 2 years before that. So we'll get to Mrs. du Maurier sooner or later. This is a perfume that I read about. It is Sortilege by Le Galion. I was reading a book, speaking of books that I did a YouTube video about a few months ago. This was a book called The House Guest and Other Stories by Amparo de Villa. And there was a story in this book called The End of the Struggle or something like that. It was a story of doppelgangers, and the point of this, whatever the story was about, that's not the point. The point is there was a perfume mentioned in the story. Apparently an ex-lover used to wear this scent, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Is this a real thing? Does this exist? And indeed it does exist. This is a perfume house that has been around for a while. I think I read that this perfume was created in like 1927 or 1937. It was the iconic perfume of the famous Stork Club, a jazz club in New York, which I don't know anything about that, but that's what the website says. And I haven't tested it enough to really tell you much about what it smells like. Dry, woody, almost a bit of a metallic sourness, but in a pleasant way. Anyway, I have to spend some more time with it before I can give a proper review. But yeah, you should pay attention to the perfumes that pop up in your stories. You can find some interesting things that way. I'm afraid TikTok has sent me down a rabbit hole, not of anybody else's stuff, but just of my own lists of perfumes I've wanted to acquire over the years, and so I'm afraid that I did do a little bit of acquisitions. What we do in Paris is secret from a lab on fire, and I have thoughts on this, but I'm not ready to share them. I don't know that they're thoughts that will make sense to anyone but me, but stay tuned if you're watching my TikTok. Sel Marin by Healy, which is sort of an aquatic scent, a salty driftwood sea cave scent. I also have some thoughts on this. I'm putting a review together. I just had to get, because of the name, I didn't even bother getting a sample, which is a really stupid thing to do with, super expensive perfumes. This is called Heresy by Chapel Factory, and it's not entirely pleasant at first. It's like a sour, funky, musty corner, but then it opens up and there's some interesting things happening, so I'm excited to spend some more time with this one too. And finally, and I know this is kind of bonkers, this is a lot of perfume and a lot of money to be spending on, but whatever. This is Fleur de Lune by Stranger's Perfumery, and I think this is just a bunch of night blooming flowers. It sounded really interesting. It's funny though, for an expensive scent, this label looks kind of shoddy, but I will report back on this. And finally, I received from Srah Faith Gottessdeiner, who is an artist and a designer and a tarot reader, a really interesting person. She has these sort of cult following, moon planners, I guess you could say, lunar workbooks perhaps. She sent me the Mini Moons 2021 Lunar Planner, which is just a beautiful creation, and also the Moon Book, Lunar Magic to Change Your Life, which again is just a beautiful tome. And I haven't had a lot of time yet to go through it, but having interviewed Srah in the past, she is just full of wisdom and insight, and I know that will translate into this book, and so I'm really excited to delve deeper into it. So I chatted with you about some stuff, I showed you some things. Maybe next month I'll do a proper video where I'm not just talking at you. Perhaps we'll make a cake together, or I'll create a cauldron of soup, or maybe even some more perfume reviews. It's not like I have any shortage of fragrances to talk about. Or if there's anything you might like to see from my collections, books or jewelry or perfumes or art, I'm always happy to show those off. And if there's anything you'd like to hear me talk about, but feel free to drop that in the comments as well. Until then, thanks again for stopping by. Until later, weirdos.